Hello, my name is Miki Markovic. I am the Global Technical Support Director at Rosslare Security Product. Thank you for joining me today for AxTraxNG Elevator Control webinar. On today's webinar, I will show you and explain you what is an elevator control system, how to wire an elevator control system, and I will show you a live demo how to define and configure an elevator control system on AxTraxNG. So first of all, what is an elevator control? Elevator controls is a system that controls which user allowed to access which floor on the system, on the premise. So by using an elevator control system, we define the access level for the elevator. We define which floors each user allowed to access using his own credentials. On the system components, what we have is AxTraxNG server. We recommend to use 27.7 and above. AxTraxNG server required to run on a minimum Windows 7, 32 or 64 bits. We recommend to use Windows 10 and above. AxTraxNG communicate with any access control panel via TCP/IP and a reader inside the elevator to get the credential. The reader communicate either weekend, that is the most common, and this is what I define here in the diagram, but it can also be an OSDP reader. Each flow on the system, on the elevator, require an output. So we have also an output connected to the elevator. And of course, an elevator. On the general wiring, what we have inside the elevator, we have the elevator control panel. This is the elevator control panel that decide which floors to activate and to which floor to access. And we have a reader inside the elevator. Outside the elevator, we have the access control panel and the communication coming weekend for the reader and dry contact wires to the elevator control panel. The reader wiring, straightforward, as we know already. So each reader require minimum of power, red and black, and weekend, green and white. Because we can connect the temper and the green LED control if we need. On how to wire the floor buttons, how to wire correctly so we make sure every time a user have an access to a floor, the incorporated button will be active. So what we are doing here is using the relay, the output of the panel. In this case, I'm displaying the R805. It's a 16 output expansion module for the AC825 and 3 floors. So we have 3 buttons. And what's happened, each button is wired through the normally open of the relay and connecting continuous to the elevator control panel. Once the user has an access, the relay will be closed and the button will be active. As long as the user doesn't have access to the floor, the button is inactive. So this is the simple way of access of elevator control, giving us the options to control if the button is active or inactive. And this is what we're going to show today. In addition, a major limitation that we have to know is that each elevator requires a dedicated panel. This means that we cannot share 2 elevators on one panel, even though if we have enough outputs on the panel. Doing so, it means that every access of any of the elevators, on both elevators, the outputs will be active, since we don't have the logic to assign a reader to an elevator. Now that we understand the wiring and the cabling of the elevator control, let's see what needs to be done on the AxTraxNG side. So on the AxTraxNG side, from the configuration side, we need to create an AC link. The AC link says that the output groups assigned to the user will be open. The next thing is that we need to create an output groups for each floors. This means we are creating floors access group. Each floors will have its own access group. You can have, but we need to know we cannot share more than one output group per user. Then we can add a user, and we will assign an output group to the user as a project. So the output group will be assigned per the floors this user allowed to access. Of course, the user must have access rights to the readers also. So if the user doesn't have access right to the user, it will not work. Let's go to a live demo, and I will show you how to configure it from scratch on AxTraxNG. Okay, now we are on AxTraxNG, and I will use my local panel here. This panel is AC805 with the 805. I have a total of 10 outputs. This means I can control 10 floors. On this demo, I will show you an elevator with 4 floors, and I will use 4 of the outputs of the system. My first step is to add an AC link. So I will go to Network, Dedicated Panel, and add an AC link by clicking the plus button. My source type will be a reader. My event, I will select the appropriate reader. My event will be output group selected by user. It needs to be enabled. Time zone will be always, and destination panel will be the panel and the user output groups. Now, when I added the AC link, I can start created and output groups. Before creating output groups, what I would like to do is just name the floors so I know which reader is which floor. So this will be floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, and floor 4. Now that my outputs have a name and I know which floor is attached to each output, I can create an output groups. Go into groups, output groups, create a new output group, and let's say this output group is for floor 1 and 2. So selecting the floors 1 and 2, clicking OK. Creating it just for floor 4, sorry. Again, selecting the output for floor 4, and let's say all floors. So just selecting all floors. And I have 3 access levels to the elevator. Of course, if you have more than one elevator, you need to select the floor on each elevator to the group, so user can access any elevator on the building to access the same floors. Now I can go to the user. I will add a new user by clicking the plus. I can add an image to the user. I can add credentials to the user. In this time, we just use a biometric. So I will go and enroll from fingerprint terminal. I will select the terminal I have here, select the finger, click enroll. And click OK. Now I have a fingerprinting role. Under General, we have the selected output group. Now I can give him which floors this user is allowed to go. For now, we'll use the floor 1 and 2. I will give access group, so I will make sure the user have access to the reader in the elevator, and click OK. Now this user was added and can start access the system. So now, every time this user accesses, the elevator floors are accessed. This is how you define elevator control on AxTraxNG. Okay, now that we have seen how to define elevator control on AxTraxNG, let's summarize what we have done today. First of all, we have seen what is an elevator control. Then we define how to wire an elevator control system using Rosslare Access Control Panel and AxTraxNG. And at the end, I show you how to configure elevator control on AxTraxNG. I would like to thank you for being with me today. And if you have any questions, you can go to our support portal at support.rosslaresecurity.com, or you can email direct to support@support.rosslaresecurity.com, and this will forward to the appreciate region. Thank you again. Have a good day.